Yep. So here we go live. So welcome everyone to Meshery development meeting. Today is 9th of August and I'll quickly share the meeting minutes in chat. Make sure you mark your attendance and do add your last name in Zoom if you haven't. And if you got any item to discuss, whether it's on Meshery UI or Meshery CTL or backend, make sure you drop it in. We'll surely discuss your item. And before we start the call, if you got webcams, don't be shy. Feel free to open it. Even if you got messy here, you can use a cap just like me to hide it. So with that, do we have any newcomers in today's call? If you are a newcomer, haven't introduced yet, so this is your chance. You can unmute yourself and say hi to the community. So Mr. Saurabh K. Singh, so is this your first time or you have been here?
Pranav, I have given the introduction. I've been, this is my second meeting, Meshery development meeting.
Oh, okay then.
Thank you.
That's great. All right. So I don't think we have any newcomer today. So even if I missed, feel free to interrupt me or say hi in chat. So we'll be having a couple of demos today. So let's start with that.
Hi, this is Amrit.
Oh.
I'm a newcomer.
Yeah, Amrit, go ahead. Sure.
Hi, I'm Amrit. I'm a newcomer here.
Yeah, great. Welcome, Amrit. Would you like to tell us a bit about yourself, your tech stack, college, anything?
I'm currently pursuing mechanical engineering at IIT Roorkee. I've been working in React and Django for about a year and I've been developing apps for my college. Like I have developed an app for borrowing and selling stuff, and also an app for finding lost things. Recently, I got into DevOps, and I've been working with Go. In between, I've also worked with uh, on blockchain and participated in a hackathon in hackathons. So I'm quite new to the DevOps ecosystem, and yeah.
That's great. Fantastic. Yeah, nice to have you, Amrit. You will definitely enjoy in the community and find a issue or a spot to work on. All right. So anyone else whom I'm missing and is joining for the first time would like to say hi before we move towards topics?
Rajiv, have you introduced before? Or Aditya Tomar?
Yeah, hello.
Hey, Aditya.
Yeah, hello, Lee. Actually, I have been in the newcomers meeting before. So this is, by the way, this is my first Meshery development meeting.
Very good. And so, yeah, there's, do you see any new faces here that weren't inside of the newcomers call?
I think some of them.
It'd be a good idea to introduce yourself here then so that they can get to know you.
Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Aditya. I'm currently in my third year of BTech and I'm exploring more about open source, and I have been a DOK Explorer intern at DOK, and currently I'm also been an ambassador at DOK, recently selected.
Oh, that's great. Nice to have you.
Thanks.
All righty. So with that, let's go with today's topics. So before we roll on with topics, make sure you start the Meshery repository and help us go vertical. Help 5 go vertical. I'll quickly share the link of Meshery repository in chat. Do share it with your friends, colleagues. And if you haven't published your first design into Meshery catalog, we now have documentation and a video tutorial that's on docs.meshery.io. So make sure not to miss that out and do publish your first design. We'll definitely give you a shout out from Meshery Twitter handle. So let's have a demo on Collaborators extension point from Pranav or Senali.
I'm sharing my screen. So first, I'll give a little bit of context of what this is. So Meshery, as an extensible cloud data manager, supports a different variety of ways for extending its base functionality, and that is to extension points. Meshery, as of today, supports a couple of extension points, like the whole UI component as extension point, UI page as a extension point, UI component, or backend functionality. So these are three different types, and how these get plugged in. So when you log into Meshery, then Meshery asks you to select any of your providers. So based on the remote providers send sends their capabilities through capability endpoint, and based on that, the functionality of Meshery can be enhanced. And so that's it. And like currently, Meshery already have a couple of extension points like meshmap, which is a whole UI page extension point, or the visualizer, which is a backend extension point, or it's the preferences, which is a component-based extension point. So this new extension point is a component-based extension point, and that's about collaboration, which basically means like whenever you're in Meshery UI, so Meshery UI will actually detect other number of users who are also using Meshery at the same time. And based on them, Meshery will show you the avatars of all of them. It's very similar to what we already have in designer of meshmap, but this is like a global view where you can see everybody, no matter where they are in Meshery UI, you will always see them. And yes, so that's like straightforward gist of what this is. Like I don't think like I have to tell it internal functionality, but basically it's like showing different users on Meshery, and it's exactly same. If you click on the avatar, it will take you to the public profile on mesherycloud. And yes, so that's it. Any questions on this? Nali, would you like to add on anything?
I think everything is explained right.
Yeah. So does anyone else have a question on this or feedback on this? I've got a couple of questions. Maybe some other people will have some. Well, there's two questions. So one has to do with a little bit of the implementation with respect to rooms. And maybe you can speak to that without even a further question. The second inquiry that I have is, well, is there a delay in the display of, yeah, there you go. As you refresh the screen.
Yeah, actually that's not, it's kind of like, probably the header component gets re-rendered, and based on that, this extension point also tries to re-render, and then it fetches the remote provider component from the directory. So that's one of the reasons like it takes little time. It's like, so yeah.
So I wonder if Usman or Aabid or Pranav or anybody has thoughts about how to avoid, what would be the right word? I don't know. How to avoid that glitch, so to speak. Usman, do you?
Yeah, like you can use Redux for that.
We would likely like, okay. I was just saying that probably like we would have to check, like we don't have to re-render this header component on each change of page. If we can stop that, then likely we wouldn't see this delay.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that, Pranav. I was reading. Say it again. If we can stop what?
If we can stop re-rendering of this header component,
Oh,
like this header component re-renders on change of page. So if we don't do that, then likely we wouldn't see that.
okay. Okay. That sounds similar to what maybe Uzair is suggesting. Now, to the extent that individual users would come and go, memoizing or preventing a re-rendering of the overall global nav, that wouldn't, what adverse effect would that have on how quickly users would be shown new collaborators as they come and go?
It's like it's dynamic. So what happens is that whenever that extension point loads over here, so there is like that component has a use effect which automatically talks to the remote provider and set up the YDS room and then like start the thing. So it's like as soon as they go out, as soon as this unmounts, we will like remove them from the room.
Nice. Actually, what I was trying to ask is if we memoize the global nav, what adverse effect, if any, will that have on the speed by which collaborators, the presence of them is updated?
No, it shouldn't have any effect because that's a separate component and no, it shouldn't have any effect.
Okay, let me ask this.
Okay.
Let me ask this differently. That makes sense. Thank you. Answered the question. Let me ask it differently. And that is that as you go to, so you guys think if you memoize that component, that as you were to refresh the right side of your screen, that just as soon as the word dashboard were to appear, so too would other avatars appear or somewhere around there. Okay.
By the way, this is a fix we have to do. That is like I had to talk about this. That is, we would require a new loading component specifically for this. So I would like request Senali if she can come up with the new loading component so that it's specific to this area and we don't show such large loading screens. You would also have to like pick. And yes, and we would also like have to fix the alignment of this. Like currently it's little on the lower side. It should be on the same thing. That's just 2 UI fixes. And after that, like we are ready to ship this. And also one more thing, like I'll have to make one small change that is like this collaboration will work only based on user preferences. Like currently, if you go to your preferences, you can actually opt out of like doing this collaboration stuff. So if you do opt out, then you wouldn't be able to see these. So we have to like expose that into here and then so yeah. That preference. It's currently it's only in Meshery designer, but yeah, meshmap designer. So. Do we want that functionality or we want this to be always there?
Yeah, sorry. I probably missed the first part of what you were asking. And by the way, anyone else that's on the call is welcome to chime in. I'm just kind of filling in the air. Pranav, you were noting that users of meshmap have the ability to disable collaboration mode, and that's at the moment appropriately buried inside of meshmap because that's where collaboration is. But as that capability gets pulled out to be a global function of Meshery, that ability, it would make sense to maybe move that outside of, and that makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay.
Seems like it might have to be renamed such that it's not about multi-user editing, but rather maybe multiplayer mode.
Yeah.
Something. Now, I guess, this is a good question for everybody else that's on the call. There aren't, any suggestions are welcome, any ideas are welcome. But so to the extent that there's 2 people inside of the area on the left, meshmap, that's a canvas, that's a document where people can design their infrastructure and configure it, and multiple people can do it at the same time. Okay, great. That's helpful for collaboration. where else might people collaborate, especially, to the extent that that capability becomes global and potentially available across the rest of the pages? Anybody have ideas? What's that? Chat? Yeah, that would be great. Chat would make sense. Could be a global function. Sounds like there's a new room as well, a Meshery UI room. People could chat. Okay. Maybe that chat would live outside of meshmap, or, maybe that would be, I don't know, potentially if you hover on the Kubernetes context switcher for a moment and you go in there, like there's a UX paradigm that's present already for hovering over things in the nav bar. Maybe if you were to hover on an avatar and it were to peek, you can click to go see who Cody is. But maybe if, I don't know, Usman, you got any thoughts here about the suggestion that I'm making?
Like, are you saying that we should have it inside MeshKit, or like...
That I'm suggesting that a feature enhancement could be the ability for this particular extension point to offer up chat across Meshery UI, and to potentially expose that in the form of the same style menu that drops down when you hover over the Kubernetes context switcher. So yeah, just click it for me. There you go. So could be chat, drops down from here. Thoughts? Not a good suggestion. Not what you were thinking.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking this.
Anybody else have thoughts? Ankit, Kumar, what do you think? Amrit, you guys think chat in here is helpful at all? If two people are working on the same design, their mice are fighting over something, is chat helpful or no? Not what you would expect. All right,
I also wanted
Saurabh Singh, Yash, anybody? Bueller? Right.
Alrighty. If no one has any more comments, so let's move to next item. All right. Thanks, Pranav and Senali. So next up, we have an update from Aabid on connections chart and toolbar fix, styling fix.
Yeah, hi. So I had these small items on just. So first is like in the Meshery cloud, we're currently having these toolbars were scattered, like the styling was different for each of in these catalog fields. So we are now having this like this toolbar component, and I have fixed it up like the gap issues and padding issues here. And another thing was small fix for the chart toggle button. Actually, it was not working at the first instance because we're not like setting it to default. So I fixed that also. Now this one also works, and we have this toolbox container. And another issue was with the charts. We just added a new chart for the connections. It shows the connection status. So like how many connections are in each state. So this was actually merged yesterday, but the data was not sent right. Like there was some issue with sending null data. So I'll just add the fix for it. So I'm checking it if the data is correct, and I added a utility function for it. So we can also make sure in other charts, the data that's coming is in the right state. So I think that's for me, like we have another thing is like I might like to ask for feedback is like, do you have any ideas for any other charts, or is there any like which we can make to make this dashboard more useful?
Cool. Nobody's got ideas, huh? Well, I know that we won't be calling on Ankit or Saurabh Singh. Anybody got any ideas? Something that would be useful in a chart?
Probably applications, design, and filters.
Yeah, we can have that like a chart for this showing the catalog context like we have in the MeshKit Cloud. That can be also, that kind of chart can be also useful here. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Like a chart for configuration that will show the different proportions of filters application.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Like we have like the similar kind of in the MeshKit Cloud that I was showing previously, like it shows, but it's like for showing the ratio between each of these, but we can here show how many of them are different.
Yeah,
A chart sorry for interruption. Yeah, so our chart maybe for like we also like when we install a service mesh, or maybe when a Kubernetes install, we show that there are two pods are installed, and there are some, we have a list like we show the list in the works load, maybe not sure in the service mesh. We can show that in a form of chart maybe.
Yeah. And this,
I've got a couple. Since you're asked, hey, if you're asking, it's like Christmas for me then. So yeah, there's one of them that would be nice is something of like a recent operations widget. So not necessarily a chart per se. It could be, to the extent that there's provisioning operations and deprovisioning operations and various things that users might do. But I was thinking more of just a list, like sort of a bulletized list of various operations that the user has performed, the one that this user, whoever is signed in. It's nice. And then what it would do, while it may only provide, it would provide some amount of show back to the user to say that, oh yeah, when they chose to provision or deploy a design earlier, that request was received. Like they can see that in the list. They could then, they could then, if they're wondering like, hey, where's my operation at? Has it been completed? And if it has been, what are the details of that? Well, that's a great launch pad for them heading into the notification center, or sort of the notification center plus, if it becomes something of an operations center. So a widget called recent operations that tracks, well, I'll use the word events. There's the concept of Meshery events, or the concept of events inside of Meshery, and there's an events API, and that needs to be reworked, but there are events there. So that would be nice. A second one that might work out very well as a chart is a mesh sync digest. This sort of parlays with the most recent suggestion that someone else, I think Pranav maybe said, or Yash did, which is what elements is Meshery managing? And it's similar to this connections chart. It's similar, but it would be quite distinct to the extent it would provide different information. So if Meshery is connected to two different Kubernetes clusters or just one, there's a lot of information that MeshSync collects and Meshery server gathers up and aggregates centrally. Well, some of that aggregate information, even very simple things that don't necessarily seem insightful at first, are things like it's like the data that's being shown in the workloads here that's a tabularized information. That's interesting, helpful. But yeah, that same tabularized info could be charted to say, oh, there's 2 clusters, it would ideally work based in part off of the Kubernetes context switcher in the upper right-hand corner. If there are 2 clusters connected and they have both of them checkmarked, great. When they were to look at this workloads widget or look at the mesh sync digest widget or whatever, that if it were to say 25 pods, 13 deployments, 4 services, or 8. Anyway, and then if they were the idea with the context switcher, just in case it's not evident for everyone, is that as a user navigates across various pages within Meshery, that the data that they're seeing, so how many connections there are, for example, that data is filtered by the context switcher, by that component. That's something of a global filter. So anybody else have ideas about, data that could be shown? Other things that pop to mind, geez, man, I have other ideas. I'll hold off and say, does anybody else have ideas? Anybody else have things like, yeah.
Like as an extension from Meshery Cloud, we bring events and where we have like users activity. So like we could also point like the user activity in Meshery UI, like how much this user being active, and so that we can reference that thing that yes, this the activeness of person in the project. Like
yeah, that sounds like fairly similar to the concept of a recent operations widget. So what actions did a particular user invoke? But there's a slight nuance to what you're saying, which you might have accidentally, or on purpose or not, tossed in a couple of additional words. You said project, which was kind of nice. Yeah, to the extent that there was a workspace or like a project construct, it would be pretty nice to be able to see, hey, who all is collaborating inside of this project or inside this workspace, and what all activity has happened inside this area recently. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so regarding the recent operations center, like I think we can somehow manage it with the notification center. So like when they will be like kind of merged, so this one will also become pretty useful. Like so users will frequently see what are our recent operations, and in the same way they can also see which operations were successful, so they can go into the errors tab, or so we can have more data here. Like it should be like so should be filled, like it should not be always empty.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally, Aabid. I mean, for my part, I certainly agree. Like, if there is a small widget on the dashboard, it is more of a very brief summarization and something of a teaser for like heading into the notifications into the operations center for the real stuff, or like powerful filters. But to your point, a history of an audit trail and an understanding of not only what I think in part what you were saying is like not only of what the users and their activity is, but also just of the system itself. Sometimes if we sat here long enough, or not even long enough, but this particular Meshery server, when it were to boot up, or if you were to connect it to a Kubernetes cluster, if we were to just sit there for like a minute, the system is busy working, interacting with Kubernetes, doing various things, discovering, learning, deploying, those to your point, yeah, listing out those activities. Adina raised up another idea, great suggestion, and that is, I'll phrase it slightly differently, but to the same point that she was saying, is that Meshery does manages service meshes very well. It also manages all other things under the Kubernetes sun. If a Prometheus is present, whether it's inside of a connected cluster or not, just if someone has connected a Prometheus instance to Meshery, well, there's any number of metrics to be able to show. And one of the examples that she had given was like, ingress and egress traffic. So there on that, it's such a great suggestion. On that point, the roadmap for the upcoming .7 release had originally called for a whole set of new features around customizable dashboard, customizable widgets, wherein people can, that you can do some of this already today, but when you connect to Meshery to Grafana or you connect it to Prometheus, you're able to tell it, hey, here's my PromQL that I'd like for you to use. I would like for you to have a widget. And so the feature to build out was to be able to allow the user to pull from a repository, to create their own widgets and to use metrics from Prometheus to do that. And so to the extent that that was ingress and egress traffic, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, like I was recently using the analytics service, like I think like you might know, like Mixpanel. So they do allow like these creating their own custom dashboards for like they only do traffic analysis, but like we can create a lot of dashboards, and it's just like it's very complex in a sense, but we can do like something out of it, like as you mentioned, creating our own custom widgets. So I think you are trying to say like the metrics are directly coming from the connected components like Grafana or something, but we will allow our users to like visualize that information in their dashboards according to their use cases.
Totally. I'll share a couple of links. In part because actually Gaurav already, he's got a great link up in the Zoom chat. Freedisch is here, or Thibaut as he goes by. He's been like, this is a good, healthy thing to talk about, because one of the things that Freedisch has been trying to ensure that happens is that at least inside of the Meshery playground demo system, that environment, that system is always connected to a Grafana and a Prometheus. Because when it is, you get some of those metrics. You don't get them showing up on the dashboard like Adina is suggesting, but you get them on other in other areas. And there's one thing that I think would be healthy for us, all of you, us to think about a little bit is maybe, actually, do you mind sharing, Aabid, bringing up the link that, that Gaurav shared, so everybody can just kind of take a look. There's the Meshery architecture deck, or maybe even that page that's in Zoom chat. It would be healthy since we're kind of digging into this topic. Maybe there you go. I'm gonna ask everybody a question or make a suggestion and see if, to what extent this resonates with people. If you were to scroll down a little bit, there should be a section on, well, there's one on performance. Yeah, good. And then there's, if you go down even further, yeah, there's one for user-defined dashboards and metrics. So it has Uzer's name next to it. So I don't know what he's been doing. Obviously not working on this, but he's been busy working on a lot of other things. If you were to scroll down a little bit, do you mind hitting the Meshery architecture deck link? And by the way, this link and that page, everybody that's on the call, you should have access to this deck. It's such a great deck to digest the things that Meshery does. Most of its slides are, accurate and up to date. Most. If you were to go to slide 43. All right, this is a good one for us to sit on for a moment. So this, if you don't mind, yeah, thank you. I'll just keep driving your mouse remotely. I'll just keep telling you what to. Anyway, all right, here's my question for everybody, or here's something to think about, is that's a quick mock-up on the left-hand side. It's pretty small, but it's a quick mock-up of what Aabid was just saying, that like, I see each of these widgets could be user-defined, what charts and what metrics to show in those charts could be user-defined. And so, yeah, Meshery could just, support customizable dashboards. Great. And okay. So what's there to think about? Didn't we just, there's one thing to think about for a moment is, and it relates to what Freedisch is doing, what Thibaut is doing, which is when you initially deploy Meshery, we put in, you all have put in a lot of effort to make Meshery relatively, even though it's dealing with complex systems, to make Meshery relatively easy to deploy and to reduce the time to value. Some of us are lazy engineers. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but oh man, if I'm trying out a new piece of software and it takes a long time to stand up, and oh my God, but if it's quick to stand up and within a few minutes it starts to give me a little bit of value, maybe not all the value that it can provide, but a little bit, well, then I'm intrigued and I'm encouraged to continue on my journey of exploring the project. So I'm going to land this plane here. What I was going to suggest is that there perhaps are sort of two categories, maybe more, but two categories of metrics or charts or some of that widgetizable info that can be displayed to users immediately. And that some of that information that we would expect to always be prevalent and readily available to display to users immediately upon sign-in is information about Meshery itself. Meshery itself should kind of know about itself and know about its components, and that info should be, should be retrievable immediately, such that people don't open up Meshery and see an empty dashboard. The reason, and the second category of data or of metrics might be things like, well, when Meshery is connected to a data source for metrics, in this case, metrics, to a Prometheus or to a Grafana, at that point, it can display, it can display, but if it, all that info, if that data source isn't present and those widgets are quite prominent because they're quite interesting and it's showing you information about the, about the infrastructure, then that's fantastic. But if the data source isn't present, empty dashboards, not a lot of value. Perhaps there's something to think about there. Think amongst yourselves. I'll just think aloud as Adina is bringing up a couple of topics. So this sort of functionality resonates with her. We do need to change the title of this slide from the extensible mesh manager to the extensible cloud native manager, something like that. Yeah, it's nice that Meshery, what it tries to do is embrace and extend generally. Meshery doesn't necessarily try to come in and displace any infrastructure that you're using. Rather, it tries to augment that infrastructure and enable people to manage it even better. Which is to say that even though if someone were to look at Meshery, just like a screenshot, and the screenshot showed a pretty dashboard full of metrics and colorful charts with legends that work, that they might mistake it as like, oh, that's cool. That's another observability tool, like it track, I've got 14 of those already. That's our problem, is like consolidating. We don't need another. Oops, that wasn't what we meant to convey to you. And so the point of what I'm saying is that Meshery embraces your existing Grafana dashboards. When you connect it to a Grafana, what it will do is discover your existing dashboards. Oh, and it will just let you import them or let you pick and choose which of those dashboards that you would like to have displayed, which of those metrics from your existing dashboard. Oh, okay, good. Now, you don't necessarily have to connect to Grafana. You can just export the JSON description of your dashboards, your Grafana dashboards, and import that JSON. Now, you do have to, those descriptions of what metrics and what size charts, what type charts and all that, they do have to have a data source defined. And so whatever that data source that's defined is, typically Prometheus, not necessarily always, that does have to be actively connected in order to render data. But in neither case is Meshery being the metric collector, nor is it being necessarily intending to displace your metric visualizer, rather to embrace it, extend it a little bit into this interface, maybe provide links back to your original Grafana dashboards if you have, other things that you want to track there, things potentially other than metrics, because there are other forms of telemetry. And what are those? Class? Well, that we'll save that answer for another time. There's a lot to say about telemetry. And the 3 pillars of telemetry: logs, traces, and metrics. People have been trying to create a 4th one for a while. There's some interesting work there. Anyway, anybody else have comments on this area? Would any UI individual like to work on this area? And any backend individual? Jägermeister. That's fine. Sounds like a drink. Well, okay, then maybe this won't land in 7.5 without volunteers. There's always 8.5. So anybody else have random thoughts? Wow. I didn't realize we used up as much of the meeting time. This has been something that a couple of contributors have looked at potentially doing. There's existing database design for how those would, if you go to the next slide, on slide 44, there's a suggestion of the database tables that would drive that customizability. It looks like a lot of tables. It's not too difficult. You can ignore the white and blue thing. And anyway, if you get interested, talk to Uzair Sheikh, and he'll guide you down the right path.
All right. So that was a healthy discussion. If anyone has thoughts or comments on .7, or if you want to pick up, I have already shared the link of Discuss Forum. You can signal or raise hand over there. So moving next, we have a CI update from Suhail. Is Suhail with us? Yep, he's.
Yeah. Yeah. So the issue that I was working on was related to MeshKit error duplicacy. So there is a CI job that runs for creating error docs in Meshery. So these jobs were failing because there were duplicacy in Meshery server, error codes, and some error details. So in this PR, I have fixed this. So before merging this, we need to have a pre-commit hook or a workflow file to check whether there are any error duplicacy before merging any PR.
Anything for Suhail? All right. Thanks, Suhail.
By the way, quick question. By the way, Suhail, is that your monster errors PR? Because that looked like a healthy bit of work. That was some good stuff.
Yeah, for Meshery server, for Meshery CDL, I have created another PR.
That's very helpful. Now, are you, after this, is the intention then to enforce make errors as part of well, I guess every build, every PR, and as part of like just make server, or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Like a pre-commit hook or a workflow that runs make error.
All righty. All right. You clean it up and then you make sure it stays clean. So, okay. Freedisch.
Hello. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. All right. So my MeshKit PR to support the PR that I open in Meshery has been merged. So the only thing here now is I'm just gonna wait for the next release of MeshKit, and then if there is anything, I will update my Meshery PR. If not, it's also done then. Since I can, I'm able to like retrieve the host ID and all the details for all those three endpoints. So yeah, that's it. And also inside of the spreadsheet, there are a couple of endpoints that has not been implemented. So there is this one for those one for the policies. So one to return a specific entity for the latest version, and the other one to return the list of registered policy. So yeah, I already opened an issue for that. So that's it. Pick one.
Just a heads up for Uzair. Just I want to call, yeah, Freedisch or Thibaut, as you go to implement. Whoa, sorry for that. I just slapped the mic. Hope that didn't bust anyone's eardrums. Man, some people drop the mic. I guess I slapped the mic. That's the. But Uzair, it looks like Thibaut's going to enhance this area, and so I figured I'd highlight it for you to the extent that perhaps you end up offering review. So. Cool.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Thibaut.
Sure.
So Subedy would like to make a call for volunteer for SMP scheduling test.
Hi, yeah. I'll just quickly share my screen. Just a minute.
Did you do?
Okay, so to give you a brief overview about what the issue is. So we run periodically automatically service mesh performance action, like these benchmark tests that runs on the GitHub workflows and CNCF clusters. We run this performance profiles and then publish them into our SMP dashboard. Just to quickly show you the dashboard. So all the tests that we run in the GitHub Action workflow get published here in this particular web page, with all charts and everything. But recently there are few of these scheduled benchmark tests that are failing, specifically for Istio, and few of them for Linkerd. So this is a call for volunteer to look into these issues, why these tests are failing. You can try to replicate the action in your local system or in a private repository, and then figure out or debug what the problem is. If you have any questions or if you're stuck anywhere, if you don't understand how things are working, you can definitely ping me or ping in the performance channel. I will be happy to help you. So yeah, this is a call for volunteer to find out reasons and figure out why these tests are not working. One thing I can make easy for you is that for Istio particularly, the endpoint URL itself is endpoint URL is not getting correctly provision. So fixing that would actually solve most of the problems for Istio. Similarly, there's for Linkit. So I will be working on this too. So if anyone wants to work alongside, that would be great.
Okay, Aryan Sharma, you might be interested. I don't know. Figured I'd ask.
Yes, sir, I can look into it.
Yeah. This is the Istio project, by the way. They're just spinning up a new, they are reviving their performance testing. And so there might be some interplay with them. It'd be great if they use this. So I tagged a couple of you on an open issue in the Istio repo on this. So
All right. Thanks, maintainer Subedy. I'll share again. So Vivek Jha has a couple of updates on icon fix.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Vivek, okay, you share.
So I fixed a couple of icon errors across the Mesh UI. First one is this. Uh, in organizations. And another issue was this Twitter icon wasn't visible. I fixed that. That's it.
Yeah, the X looks good. So let's move to Yash or Abhi's update on import resource from schema.
Sure, let me share my screen. Okay, so let me tell you about this particular thing. So this issue, this PR is hanging for a long. I'm thinking to merge it as soon as possible. The issue is that when you go and publish a design, so this particular model that you are seeing is use the RGSF form. RGSF we use for become a schema driven for our forms across our like Meshery projects. So yeah, this publish model uses that form. But if you go and import a design or maybe import a filter or maybe import an application, this model don't use the standard model that we have. Like you cannot see the cross button over here and these buttons are on the right side. And also this form don't use the RGSF. So this PR makes them standard and uses RGSF in the import model for application and filter and design. The only thing was left, I think, was to confirm this PR, and the small issue was left for the application. In application, when you import a design with the RGSF form, there was issue coming when you switch between the Helm chart, Docker, and Kubernetes. There is issue coming in between because of RGSF thing. I think Abhi also pointed out this and also asked RGSF community to help over here. But I didn't get any response like what we are going to do over here. So I am thinking to not using RGSF over here, but we can use RGSF in filters and designs. Yeah. So in this PR only, this is the left thing, then we can merge this PR. Also, currently the schemas are defined in the Meshery UI, but we already shifted schemas in the MeshKit. So this PR also uses schema from the MeshKit. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Sounds like
yeah.
sounds like two things might happen. One is that this PR might merge, and then two is that until there's a response or a fix or some sort of compatible way to achieve what we want to do using the RJSF library, we might have most of the modals using the library, but a few just HTML. And so, okay. Yeah. One thing that, something to track there is that, by the way, so Gaurav was speaking about publishing items into the Meshery catalog, and a few people have been doing that. There was an Intel engineer earlier who just did one, and he was concerned about some of the formatting as what he had typed in here came out with like an extra character, like an line return character. And so if that's addressed on the meshery.io catalog site, and if it's addressed in, then there might be a note, there might be something, if you click on that question mark for help here, this is like an opportunity to say HTML is supported, or these tags, or whatever. But we might also want to be on guard for the would-be hacker. Sometimes even close contributors try to hack our stuff, and so yeah, we might want to filter out iframes or scripts or other things. But I wonder, that's a good thing to come to understand. Can a library like RJSF that has validation rules, can it help validate and remove, or enforce that such things can't be used? Seems like it would. Such tags, right? Like the script tag.
Okay, sounds reasonable. I will look into it. We'll get back to you if I found something. That this is an update.
I have a little query here. Like when during a publish model, we ask, there's a button submit for approval. So does it directly should publish, or it should have first review for review? Because what I am seeing, I was publishing a design and the design was published when I hit the submit for approval.
It is actually happening because you are using your admin account. So if you will use your without admin permission, it will go for a submit for approval. Admin accounts have access to directly publish the design.
Okay, maybe I tried with a new user only because I was checking off the audit permission. So I'll check once again. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, while you're in there, Sudhanshu, make sure you check the toaster notification. It should be different for admins and other users.
Yeah, sure.
If it's not, make sure you fix it or open an issue.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
All right. Since we are 1 minute over and we missed a couple of items, so is there any urgent item that we need to discuss, or we are good to wrap? All right, I think so. So we'll be covering rest of these items in the next meeting. And with that, let's call this meeting a wrap. So make sure you subscribe the Lay 5 community calendar so you not miss any of the meeting. And this week we have CI meeting. I think so. So I'll share that calendar. So make sure you attend that and give any updates on CI or test that you have. So you can catch the recording of this meeting on YouTube. So make sure you go and subscribe it, and do share the Meshery repository again with your friends. So thanks all for joining. We'll meet next week, same time, same place. Bye all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.